Sometimes the smallest act of kindness doesn't change a day, it changes a destiny. The rain had been falling for nearly 3 hours when Claire Whitmore locked the front door of Maple Street Diner and stepped beneath the faded awning. It was almost midnight. The street was empty except for the occasional headlights sliding through sheets of rain like ghosts disappearing into the darkness. Claire pulled her worn cream-colored coat tighter around her shoulders and glanced toward the parking lot. That was when she saw him. A man sat alone on a weathered bench near the edge of the sidewalk. Motionless. Head lowered. Rainwater soaked through his black cashmere overcoat as if he didn't even notice. Claire stopped. Most people would have kept walking. In a town where everyone minded their own business, a stranger sitting alone at midnight was not unusual. But something felt wrong. Not dangerous, just sad. Deeply sad. She watched for a moment. The man didn't move. Didn't check his phone. Didn't look around. He simply sat there while the storm poured down around him. Claire glanced toward her aging sedan parked 50 feet away. She could leave. She probably should leave. After a 12-hour shift, her feet ached. Her back hurt. Tomorrow's bills were already waiting on the kitchen table at home. Yet something in the silence around that man refused to let her walk away. She slowly crossed the wet pavement. The closer she got, the more she noticed. Mid-50s. Strong jawline. Expensive shoes splashed with muddy water. A silver watch worth more than most people's monthly rent. And eyes that looked completely lost. "Sir?" Claire asked softly. The man blinked as if waking from a dream. His blue eyes lifted toward her. For a second he seemed confused by her presence. "The diner's closed," she continued gently. "Are you okay?" A faint laugh escaped him. Not the laugh of someone amused. The laugh of someone exhausted. "Do I look okay?" Claire hesitated. No, the honesty surprised him. A small smile appeared and vanished just as quickly. The smell of whiskey lingered in the cold air. Not overwhelming. Just enough to tell a story. The man rubbed his face and looked toward the empty street. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I didn't mean to sit here this long." Claire nodded. "Do you have someone who can pick you up?" The man stared at the rain. "Not tonight." Something in those 3 words landed heavily between them. "Not tonight. Not my driver. Not my assistant. Not my family. Not tonight." Claire looked at the storm swirling under the streetlights. Then back at the stranger. "Come inside," she said. "The coffee machine's still warm." The man looked at her, genuinely surprised. As though kindness had become something unfamiliar. Something rare. He slowly stood. Unsteady, but proud enough not to ask for help. "Why would you do that?" he asked. Claire offered a tired smile. "Because nobody should sit alone in a storm." The stranger stared at her for a long moment. Then he whispered words she would replay in her mind for the next 7 days. 7 days, Claire, his eyes settled on the name stitched onto her diner uniform. "You'll understand." The diner was quiet again by 1 o'clock in the morning. The rain had softened into a steady whisper against the windows while the old neon sign outside painted red reflections across the empty booths. Claire placed a fresh mug of coffee in front of the stranger and slid into the seat across from him only after making sure every chair was stacked and every register was closed. For a few moments neither of them spoke. The man simply wrapped both hands around the warm mug as though he had been cold for years instead of hours. Claire studied him carefully. Not because she recognized him. She did not. She rarely followed business news and she had long ago stopped paying attention to the lives of wealthy people. They lived in a different world. A world of private jets, boardrooms, and luxury hotels. Her world consisted of double shifts, medical bills, and trying to stretch every dollar until the next paycheck arrived. Yet something about this man felt strangely familiar. Not his face. Not his clothes. His loneliness. That part she understood perfectly. "You should call someone," Claire said softly. "Family maybe." The man stared into the dark surface of the coffee. "My daughter is asleep." His voice was calm now. Sober enough to carry the weight of truth. "And I do not want her seeing me like this." Claire nodded slowly. "How old is she?" 10. A faint smile appeared. "She is smarter than I am." "Most kids are," Claire replied. The first genuine laugh escaped him. Small, but real. The tension in the room eased slightly. Outside, a pickup truck rolled through the intersection, its headlights briefly illuminating the diner before disappearing into the night. The silence returned. "Comfortable this time?" "What about you?" he asked. "Do you have children?" Claire shook her head. "No, family." Her eyes drifted toward the window. "My mother." Another pause. "She has been sick for a long time." The man looked up. Really looked at her for the first time. He noticed the tiredness beneath her eyes. The careful way she stretched her fingers after carrying trays all day. The determination hidden beneath her gentle voice. "That must be difficult." Claire smiled faintly. "Some days are harder than others." The stranger nodded as though he understood more than she expected. Then his gaze landed on the silver watch resting on her wrist. Old. Scratched. No longer working. "Why keep a broken watch?" he asked. Claire looked down. Her expression softened instantly. "It was my father's." She touched the glass lightly with her thumb. "The last gift he gave me before he passed away." The man lowered his eyes. "Then it is not broken." Claire blinked. "What do you mean?" "It still reminds you of him." His voice grew quieter. "That means it is doing exactly what it was meant to do." For a moment neither of them spoke. Something invisible shifted between them. Not friendship. Not trust. Not yet. Just two strangers carrying grief in different forms. The clock above the counter ticked toward 2 in the morning. Finally the man stood and reached for his coat. "Thank you, Claire." She walked him toward the door. "Will you be okay?" The stranger hesitated. Then he opened the door and stepped into the cool night air. Before leaving, he turned back one last time. His blue eyes held a strange certainty. 7 days, he repeated quietly. "And when it happens, remember this." Night. Then he disappeared into the darkness, leaving Claire standing beneath the neon glow, wondering why those words unsettled her far more than they should have. The next morning arrived with pale sunlight spilling across the small town, but Claire could not stop thinking about the stranger. As she poured coffee for early customers and wiped down counters that had seen decades of stories come and go, his words lingered in her mind. 7 days. You will understand. It sounded ridiculous. Like something from a movie. Yet every time she remembered the look in his eyes, a quiet certainty settled in her chest. Meanwhile, nearly 100 miles away, Nathan Cole stood alone inside a glass-walled office overlooking the skyline. The view was spectacular. The kind of view people spent entire careers chasing. But Nathan barely noticed it. His reflection stared back from the window instead. Tired. Older than 54. A man carrying more weight than money could ever remove. On his desk sat unopened reports, financial forecasts, and dozens of messages waiting for responses. None of them mattered. His attention remained fixed on a framed photograph beside his laptop. A smiling 10-year-old girl with bright blue eyes. Emily. His daughter. The one person in the world he loved more than his own life. Nathan picked up the frame carefully. His thumb brushed the edge of the picture. The previous month had been the hardest of his life. A series of public mistakes, endless media attention, and personal struggles had pushed him further than he had ever imagined. Investors questioned him. Reporters followed him. Every decision seemed to create another headline. Yet none of that hurt as much as the growing distance between him and Emily. He remembered the note folded inside his wallet. The same note he carried everywhere. "Daddy, please come back." 3 simple words. 3 words that somehow felt heavier than every business challenge he had ever faced. Nathan closed his eyes. The rainstorm from the previous night replayed in his memory. The diner. The warm coffee. The broken watch. Claire. She had not recognized him. Had not asked for favors. Had not treated him like a billionaire. For 2 hours she had spoken to him the way people rarely did anymore. Like a human being. That realization stayed with him. Across town, Claire finished her shift and drove to a modest apartment building on the edge of town. Her mother was resting in a recliner near the window when she arrived. Medical paperwork covered the coffee table. Prescription bottles lined the shelf nearby. Claire smiled anyway. She always did. Because worrying never paid the bills. As she prepared lunch, she noticed another letter from the hospital. Another reminder. Another expense she could barely afford. She quietly placed it beneath a stack of unopened envelopes. Some battles were easier to postpone. Outside, the afternoon sun dipped behind drifting clouds. Day 1 had begun. Neither Claire nor Nathan realized that invisible threads were already pulling their lives toward the same destination. And somewhere deep inside, both of them could feel it, change was coming. Day 2 arrived beneath a sky of thick gray clouds. The town moved at its usual pace. Delivery trucks rolled through Main Street. Store owners unlocked their doors. Customers drifted into Maple Street Diner carrying conversations about weather, football, and rising grocery prices. To everyone else, it was an ordinary Tuesday. To Claire, it felt strangely different. She could not explain why. The feeling lingered all morning. Every time the front door opened, part of her expected to see the mysterious stranger walk back inside. He never did. By lunchtime, she convinced herself the entire encounter had simply been a moment in time. One stranger. One storm. One conversation. Nothing more. Yet hundreds of miles away, Nathan Cole was doing something he rarely allowed himself to do. He was slowing down. His assistant stood outside his office holding a stack of urgent reports. Board members wanted meetings. Investors wanted answers. Journalists wanted statements. Nathan postponed them all. Instead, he spent the afternoon with Emily. The 10-year-old sat cross-legged on the living room floor surrounded by art supplies. Sunlight poured through the large windows behind her. For the first time in months, Nathan sat beside her without checking his phone every few minutes. Emily noticed immediately. Children always did. "You seem different," she said while sketching. Nathan smiled. "Different good or different bad?" She tilted her head thoughtfully. "Different happy." The answer caught him off guard. Happy was not a word many people had used to describe him lately. Emily held up her drawing. It showed a small diner beneath a rainy sky. Nathan froze. "Why did you draw that?" Emily shrugged. "I do not know. It just felt right." Nathan stared at the picture. The memory of Claire's kindness returned with surprising force. Not because of what she had done. Because of how she had done it. No cameras. No expectations. No agenda. Just kindness. Pure and simple. That night, after Emily went to bed, Nathan opened a secure file on his computer. His fingers rested on the keyboard for several seconds before he finally typed a single name. Claire Whitmore. Information slowly appeared on the screen. Age 42. Waitress. Resident of Maple Grove. No criminal record. No social media presence worth mentioning. Medical debt linked to ongoing care for her mother. Nathan continued reading. Then something made him stop. Community college honors. Nursing program. Withdrawn before graduation. He frowned. Another detail followed. Multiple years spent caring for family. Consistent employment. No complaints. No legal disputes. No requests for assistance. Nathan leaned back in his chair. The pattern was clear. Claire had spent years sacrificing opportunities for someone else. Quietly. Without recognition. Outside his penthouse windows, the city lights glittered across the horizon. Nathan thought about the broken watch. The tired smile. The hospital bills she never mentioned. Slowly, an idea began forming. Not a business decision. Not an investment strategy. Something else. Something personal. Meanwhile, unaware of any of it, Claire sat beside her sleeping mother and opened another hospital envelope. The number printed on the statement made her chest tighten. She closed her eyes. Just for a moment. Then she folded the paper neatly and placed it back into the envelope. Tomorrow would bring another shift. Another day. Another struggle. What she did not know was that the countdown had already begun, and somewhere beyond the quiet streets of Maple Grove, events were moving toward her faster than she could possibly imagine. Day 3 arrived with bright sunshine and clear blue skies, the kind of day that made people believe everything would somehow work out. Claire wished she felt the same. The morning began before sunrise. She prepared breakfast for her mother, organized medications, and quietly reviewed the growing stack of bills sitting beside the refrigerator. Every envelope seemed heavier than the last. She folded them neatly and placed them back in the drawer. Some worries could wait until tomorrow. At least that was what she told herself. By noon, Maple Street Diner was crowded. The lunch rush brought construction workers, teachers, retirees, and travelers passing through town. Claire moved between tables with practiced efficiency. Smile. Refill coffee. Deliver meals. Repeat. Most customers never noticed how tired she was. That was fine. She preferred it that way. Around 2 o'clock, a young mother entered the diner with a little boy who could not have been older than 6. The child stared at the dessert display near the counter with wide eyes while his mother quietly counted dollar bills from her wallet. Claire noticed immediately. She always noticed things like that. When the woman stepped away to answer a phone call, Claire placed a slice of apple pie in front of the boy. "This one is on the house," she said with a wink. The boy's face lit up like Christmas morning. It was a small gesture. A few dollars at most. Yet moments like that reminded Claire why she kept going. Kindness did not solve problems. But sometimes it made them easier to carry. Hundreds of miles away, Nathan sat inside a private conference room surrounded by executives discussing quarterly projections. Charts covered giant screens. Voices debated numbers worth millions. Yet Nathan's attention drifted elsewhere. He found himself thinking about a woman in a small-town diner who earned less in a month than some people in this room spent on a weekend vacation. A notification appeared. On his tablet. Additional background information regarding Claire Whitmore. Nathan opened the file. New details emerged. Volunteer work. Caregiver responsibilities. Years of helping neighbors. Donations made despite limited income. Every page told the same story. Claire consistently gave more than she received. Nathan slowly closed the file. One executive noticed. "Everything all right?" Nathan looked around the polished conference room. Yes, he answered. I was just reminded of something important. The meeting continued, but Nathan had already made a decision. Not about business. About perspective. Meanwhile, back in Maple Grove, the afternoon sunlight stretched across the diner floor as Claire prepared to leave. Her manager handed her a sealed envelope. This came for you, he said. Claire frowned. There was no return address. No company logo. Nothing unusual except for the strange feeling settling in her chest. She waited until she reached her car before opening it. Inside was a single white card. No signature. No explanation. Just 4 words printed in elegant black letters. Day 3. Be ready. Claire stared at the message. Her pulse quickened. The stranger's words returned instantly. 7 days. You will understand. For the first time, the countdown no longer felt like a coincidence. Day 4 arrived with cold winds sweeping through Maple Grove. The excitement Claire had felt after receiving the mysterious card had faded overnight, replaced by uncertainty. She had shown it to no one. Not her coworkers. Not her mother. Not even herself in the mirror. The card now rested inside a kitchen drawer beneath old receipts and utility bills, yet somehow it seemed to occupy every corner of her thoughts. Who sent it? Why her? And most importantly, what was supposed to happen on day 7? Life, however, refused to pause for unanswered questions. The diner opened before sunrise, and Claire stepped back into the familiar rhythm of work. Coffee machines hummed. Plates clinked. Customers drifted in and out carrying pieces of ordinary life. For a few hours she almost forgot about the countdown. Almost. Then shortly after noon, a delivery driver entered carrying a small package. Claire Whitmore, he asked. She nodded cautiously. The package was no larger than a hardcover book. No return address. No company name. Just her name written neatly across the front. Her stomach tightened. The driver left before she could ask any questions. Claire waited until her break before opening it. Inside was a wooden box. Simple. Elegant. When she lifted the lid, her breath caught. Resting inside was a silver watch. Not new. Not flashy. Beautifully restored. She immediately looked down at her wrist where her father's broken watch still sat exactly where it had for years. Her hands began to tremble. Carefully she opened the note tucked beneath the restored timepiece. The message contained only one sentence. Some things deserve a second chance. Claire stared at the words. Her eyes burned unexpectedly. For years she had wanted to repair her father's watch, but every estimate had been too expensive. Every dollar had gone toward rent, medicine, or food. Eventually she had stopped asking. Yet somehow a stranger had solved a problem she never even spoke about. Across the state, Nathan sat quietly inside his office reviewing photographs. One showed Claire helping an elderly customer carry groceries to a car. Another showed her leaving a pharmacy with prescriptions for her mother. A third captured her standing outside the diner beneath fading evening light. Nathan studied each image carefully. Not because he was searching for weaknesses. Because he was searching for answers. Why had one ordinary act of kindness affected him so deeply? The answer came slowly. Claire represented something he had nearly lost. Compassion without conditions. Kindness without transactions. Humanity without an audience. That evening, Claire sat beside her mother and gently placed the restored watch on the table. Her mother smiled through tears. Your father would have loved this, she whispered. Claire nodded silently. Outside, the first stars appeared above Maple Grove. The countdown continued. 4 days had passed. 3 remained. And now, for the first time, Claire could feel anticipation replacing fear. Day 5 began beneath a blanket of fog that covered Maple Grove like a gray curtain. The streets looked softer, quieter, as if the town itself was holding its breath. Claire felt it too. Every passing hour seemed louder than usual. Every glance toward the diner door carried a question she could not answer. 2 days remained. She tried focusing on work. Tried convincing herself that whatever was happening would eventually reveal itself. But curiosity had become impossible to ignore. Just after 10 in the morning, another envelope arrived. This time there was no mystery about who delivered it. A black sedan stopped briefly outside the diner. A man in a tailored suit stepped out, handed the envelope to the hostess, and left without saying a word. Several customers noticed. So did Claire. Her co-workers exchanged curious looks. "You have secret admirers now," one joked. Claire forced a smile, but her pulse had already begun to race. During her break she opened the envelope. Inside was a photograph. Nothing more. No note. No explanation. Just a single photograph. Claire stared at it for several seconds before realizing what she was looking at. It was an old community college graduation ceremony. Rows of students filled the auditorium. Families crowded the seats. At first the image made no sense. Then her eyes found the young woman standing near the edge of the stage. Blonde hair. Bright smile. Hopeful eyes. Herself. Claire had not seen that photograph in nearly 20 years. Her breath caught. Memories flooded back instantly. Dreams she once had. Plans she once made. A future she had once imagined before life changed direction. On the back of the photograph, 4 words had been written in careful handwriting. "You gave up enough already." Claire lowered the picture slowly. The words hit harder than she expected. Because they were true. Across the state, Nathan sat with Emily at a small bakery after school. The billionaire who once scheduled every minute of every day now found himself listening as his daughter described a science project involving planets and constellations. Nathan smiled more during that single hour than he had in months. "You seem happy," Emily said suddenly. Nathan laughed softly. "Do I?" "Yes." She took a bite of a cookie. "It is nice." Nathan looked out the window. For years he had believed success meant moving faster than everyone else. Working harder. Winning bigger. Yet a waitress in a small-town diner had unknowingly reminded him of something far more valuable. People mattered. Time mattered. Kindness mattered. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon in shades of gold and orange, Nathan received a phone call. He listened quietly. Asked a few questions. Then thanked the caller and ended the conversation. For the first time since the countdown began, his expression became serious. The final pieces were falling into place. Back in Maple Grove, Claire stood outside her apartment watching the sunset. The restored watch ticked steadily on her wrist. A sound she had not heard in years. Tick. 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 Time moving forward again. Somewhere in the distance, church bells rang across town. Day 5 was ending. One more sunrise remained before everything changed. Day 6 arrived bright and clear, the kind of morning that made Maple Grove look almost untouched by hardship. Sunlight spilled across storefront windows. Church bells echoed softly through town. People waved to one another as they crossed Main Street. Everything looked normal. Everything felt normal. And yet Claire woke with a strange feeling she could not shake. Tomorrow was the 7th day. Whatever mystery had been unfolding around her was nearing its end. She spent the morning helping her mother with breakfast before heading to the diner. Along the way, she found herself studying familiar places with new eyes. The pharmacy. The grocery store. The small park where children played after school. For years she had moved through life focused only on survival. Get through the shift. Pay the bills. Care for mom. Repeat. But now something had changed. The restored watch ticked steadily against her wrist. Tick. 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 Each second felt like a reminder that life could still surprise her. At the diner, business was unusually slow. By mid-afternoon only a handful of customers remained. Claire was wiping down a table when her manager approached carrying a thick envelope. His expression was unusually serious. "Another one for you," he said quietly. Claire's heart immediately began to race. She accepted the envelope with trembling fingers. The paper felt heavier than the others. Inside she found a leather folder containing several documents and a handwritten note. She unfolded the note first. The message was simple. Sometimes the life you gave up is still waiting for you. Confused, Claire opened the folder. Her eyes widened. Scholarship records. Academic transcripts. Letters of recommendation she had not seen in nearly 2 decades. Documents from the nursing program she had left behind to care for her family. Carefully organized. Carefully preserved. She turned page after page in disbelief. Then she found something else. A letter from the nursing school itself. Her breathing stopped. The school was offering her a pathway to complete her degree. Flexible scheduling. Updated enrollment options. Financial assistance already secured. Claire stared at the page. She read it once. Then twice. Then a third time. Tears filled her eyes before she realized they were there. Across the state, Nathan sat beside Emily on a bench overlooking a quiet lake. The evening sun reflected across the water in golden waves. Emily leaned against his shoulder. "Are you nervous?" she asked suddenly. Nathan smiled. "A little. That means it matters." Nathan looked at his daughter and laughed softly. She was right. Some things mattered more than business deals. More than headlines. More than wealth. Back in Maple Grove, Claire drove home carrying the folder carefully in her lap. She could hardly believe what she had read. For years she had convinced herself that chapter of her life was over. Closed forever. Yet now a door she thought had disappeared was standing open again. As darkness settled over town and stars appeared above the rooftops, Claire sat beside her mother and shared the news. Her mother cried. Claire cried. Neither of them noticed the watch ticking quietly between them. Day 6 was ending. The final sunrise was only hours away. And neither of them knew that tomorrow would bring a revelation far greater than anything they had imagined. Day 7 arrived beneath a brilliant autumn sky. The air felt crisp. Clean. Different. Claire noticed it the moment she stepped outside her apartment building. For several seconds she simply stood there, listening. Birds moved through the trees. A distant church bell echoed across town. Everything seemed ordinary. Yet deep inside, she knew this was the day. By 9 o'clock she was already working her shift at Maple Street Diner. Customers came and went. Coffee was poured. Orders were delivered. The familiar routine helped calm her nerves. At least for a while. Then, just after 11 in the morning, someone near the front window gasped. Another customer stood up. A third pulled out a phone. Claire looked outside. Her heart stopped. A line of black vehicles had entered Maple Grove. One after another. Quiet. Elegant. Impossible to ignore. The entire street seemed to pause. Store owners stepped outside. Pedestrians stopped walking. Conversations disappeared. The vehicles rolled to a stop directly in front of the diner. For a moment, nobody moved. Then a rear door opened. Nathan Cole stepped onto the sidewalk. Claire immediately recognized him. Not because of the expensive coat or the polished shoes. Because of his eyes. The same eyes she had seen through rain 7 nights earlier. He entered the diner slowly. Every head turned toward him. Claire stood frozen behind the counter. Nathan approached with a calm expression. No cameras. No reporters. No audience except the people already there. "Good morning, Claire," he said softly. "You remembered," she whispered. Nathan smiled. "I never forgot." For a moment neither of them spoke. Then Nathan handed her a folder. Similar to the one she had received the day before. Only thicker. Claire opened it carefully. Inside were legal documents. Financial records. Signed agreements. Her eyes moved across the pages. Then widened. Maple Street Diner had been scheduled for foreclosure within months due to debts accumulated over many years. The owner had hidden the situation from employees, hoping to find a solution before it was too late. There had been no solution. Until now. Nathan had purchased the outstanding debt. Cleared every obligation. Secured the future of the diner. Claire looked up in shock. "Why?" she asked. Nathan glanced around the restaurant before answering. "Because 7 nights ago, when I was at my lowest point, you helped someone you knew nothing about." His voice grew quieter. "Not because I was wealthy. Not because you expected something in return. You helped because it was the right thing to do." Claire felt tears filling her eyes. Nathan continued. "The nursing program. Your mother's medical care. The diner. Those are gifts." Then he smiled. "But the real reward is knowing that your kindness changed a life. Mine." Silence filled the room. The kind of silence that comes from genuine emotion. Nathan reached into his pocket and unfolded a familiar note. "Daddy, please come back." "I did," he said. "And because of you, I found my way." Claire looked down at the restored watch ticking steadily on her wrist. For the first time in years, the future no longer felt like something to fear. It felt like something to welcome. Outside, sunlight poured through the diner windows. Inside, a quiet waitress stood surrounded by possibilities she never imagined. And in that moment, everyone learned the same lesson. The world notices power. But it remembers kindness.